Hey everybody, Jeannie Andreessen here, interior design business coach. I help interior designers build the confidence, processes, and skills necessary to stand in their space and make the money that they deserve. So today we are actually going to be talking about the missing relationship building piece to create a seamless client experience. That is what we are going to be digging into today. My setting is new. We are actually, Jacob, myself, and Rebel drove out to Colorado, and we are actually in Lafayette, Colorado for the next 2 weeks. We're here for about 10 days, and then we're going to be in Boulder for a couple days at the end of our trip. And it's actually going, I already feel like it is the best thing for us. It's very cool. We love, obviously, exploring and traveling and seeing new places, but to also be able to rent a house where I have my own office, he has his own office, and to be able to have a backyard for Rebel. It's a nice little break from downtown Chicago city life. So, this is where I'll be for the next couple lives. And I am excited to come to you today with this in particular live topic. The reason why I chose this as today's topic is because there is a foundational piece to the client experience that is overlooked. And when this foundational piece is not addressed, when this piece is not there and time is not spent on it, it actually makes your design process very challenging. And I want to make sure that we are avoiding that. I want to make sure that your client process is the most seamless that it can possibly be, that your client experience is the most seamless that it can possibly be, so that your clients are happy. You can design, you have full power and authority to design. And that everybody has a great experience during the design process. So today we're going to be talking about what is that foundational piece. And I will tell you right away what that piece is. That foundational piece that you are often overlooking is trust. Trust is the most important piece of your client experience, of your business, and your interaction with your clients. It is the most foundational piece that is often overlooked and missing from the very, very beginning. So, how do you establish trust from the very beginning? Well, with an effective client onboarding process. The client onboarding process, it's so funny because I feel like I know that many of you are overlooking the client onboarding process. Many of you are skipping this crucial step. And what that likely looks like, and what I've heard that looks like, is somebody reaches out to you. They are a referral from somebody else. They'll send you an email to say that they are looking to hire a designer. And maybe you hop on a call with them, or maybe you just ask questions, but you go straight to their home. Maybe you just ask questions via email, but you go to their home. And after taking a look around and asking a few more questions, you say that you're going to send them a proposal, a client contract, and a proposal. And that may work sometimes. That may work for you for landing a client, but also it really doesn't work for the long game. It doesn't work for the long game. If you are skipping the relationship building step, if you are overlooking having an effective client onboarding process, you are missing an opportunity to develop trust with your clients from the very beginning. And that trust that you build in the client onboarding process as I mentioned, allows the two of you and your clients, to be able to work really well together when the project kicks off. So, I'm going to talk to you today about that client onboarding process and how to build trust in the client onboarding process. What are the elements that allow you to build trust in this process? And I want you to know that you don't have to have whatever I share with you today. You don't have to apply it. You don't have to take it. You don't have to build out your onboarding process. You don't have to do any of that. But if you want a successful client experience, if you want to enjoy the process of working with your clients, And if you want fans of yours at the end of the project, you likely want to spend more time on the client onboarding process. So let's talk about what what does a client onboarding process do? What does an effective client process look like? What are some key elements that have to be there to build trust from the very beginning? So I actually want to share with you, this is the part where if you don't have a pen and paper, you may want to have a pen and paper. So far we covered the most essential element of a client onboarding or of your having a successful client experience is building trust, and that is built in the client onboarding process. It is maintained throughout the project, but it starts and it's built at the very beginning in the client onboarding process. So hopefully you have a pen and paper now. And I want to share with you, if you haven't heard this before, if you start learning more about running a business effectively, when you start learning about marketing effectively and you start learning about sales, one thing you will hear consistently is your goal is to build the know, like, and trust factor with your prospective clients before you work together. Because if you build the know, like, and trust factor, know meaning that they feel that they know you, like meaning that they like you, and trust that they trust you, when you nail those three, things, you will land a client. So when I help my clients, actually, I talk about this in business school. I teach this in business school, but I really talk about this in my VIP client onboarding process days, because the whole purpose of an onboarding process is it's actually kind of a sales process. And the purpose of it is to build the know factor, the like factor, and the trust factor. Now, what I see from my perspective, or I'm sorry, what I see from my clients in terms of how they interact with their prospective clients is that they build the like factor pretty easily, and they kind of let their clients into kind of who they are, and their personality, and they really showcase a little bit of the know part. So a client often feels that they know you and like you, and they'll take action to work with you and sign on board with you. However, the reason why so many times it your clients go a little bit awry, the project goes awry, because you're hearing from clients around the clock, they're asking you a ton of questions, they might be shopping you. You know the drill. Why is that happening? It's because that trust factor wasn't established. When you and your clients have trust, when you trust them and they trust you, it looks the actual process, the client process looks, and the project looks easy, effortless, and fun. You communicate effectively with your clients. They know how to stay inside the lines. They know what those lines are. They know how to stay outside the lines, in which the ones that they are supposed to not be a part of. That is what a successful experience looks like. You and I both know that. That's what we want. That is what we want. We want our clients to stay in their lane so that you can stay in your lane and be able to showcase your expertise the best that you can. Now, and you're going to be, obviously, you need their participation. You're not involving them, but it's when they know what their involvement is and what their involvement isn't that you are able to do your job at the highest level. So let's talk about, how do we get there? What are the elements in your onboarding process that establish trust from the beginning, that allows you to have the design process feel much easier, more seamless, and more fun for you? So here are a few of those, and I want to make sure that you are writing these down. So first one is that you are able to confidently talk about sensitive topics. What are sensitive topics in the client onboarding process? Sensitive topics are the client budget, their expectations, and timelines. Those are typically the most sensitive pieces of the process. So, if you are able to confidently talk about those, you're not shying away from those conversations, you're not avoiding those conversations, you are nailing those and asking about them from the very beginning because you understand how important those are to the rest of the process. When you are spending time on that from the beginning, you establish trust. You do. Now, the client isn't saying this is all, it's so funny because it's like the client isn't like, oh, okay, they asked about budget. Now I trust them. These aren't conscious thoughts, these aren't conscious decisions that a client is making, but it is more of the unconscious, subconscious. It's the gut feeling that they have after having a good client onboarding process with you and having these conversations with you that trust is built. So from the very beginning, being able to confidently talk about the budget, ask about the budget, that establishes trust. The confidently talking about their timelines, that establishes trust. Now let's add another piece of this that even adds more trust in that part alone. And that is setting realistic expectations. When you are saying yes to every single thing that the client is giving to you, so they tell you what they're looking for, they tell you the budget that they have in mind, they have you the timeline that they have in mind, and you're just saying yes to all of that, you might be doing that because you want them to like you. And we just learned that liking you is really important. That's a part of this process. It's a part of building the know, like, and trust factor to land clients and make sales. But you're not building the trust factor if you're saying yes to all of that. Sure, the liking you might lead to, them working with you, but the liking you doesn't come in as strongly during the design process. They need to trust you during that time. When you are able to set realistic expectations, it builds the trust factor. Let me give an example. A client tells you what they're looking for, and then you confidently ask for what their budget is, and that budget is not going to get them what they're looking for. So let's say they list out, I'm like, this is the part where I'm like, I need to use a calculator, but my calculator is on my phone and I am looking at you on my phone. But let's set an example. Let's set something fairly simple. So a client wants a living room, dining room, and they have $75K allotted for that. And you, based on what they shared with you, based on kind of the size of their dining room, know that what they want will cost closer to 125K. I'm going to write this down so that I am not losing track of this example that I already just gave. And I'm like, okay, let me make sure I remember these details. So they tell you they have 80K allotted for this, and it'll cost closer to 125. Instead of just saying yes, when you are able to have that conversation to say, thank you so much for sharing this with me, confidently you're saying this, and you are able to say to them what you are looking for, really lands more in the 100K plus. And when I say plus, it's probably 100 to 125K max. When you are able to confidently say that and set that expectation, and say, how does that feel to you? Is there wiggle room? Is that something that you're open to? Is that possible? Is that doable? Talk to me a little bit about how that feels to you. When you are able to do that, you build trust. You do. And even though you may not lose trust in that moment, if you just say, okay, yeah, 75K, we can do that, you lose the trust later on when you start throwing things out there, when you start sourcing and you start pulling things and presenting options, and all the things they like end up adding up to 100 to 125K. That is when trust is lost. So we want to build that trust bank from the beginning by being able to have those tough conversations and set realistic expectations. If you are able to have that conversation and be able to tell them that something is going to cost closer to 100, 125K, that allows them to know that you are not going to be BSing your way through this whole process. And a lot of other people are. If they are to say, a lot of other people are. And if they challenge you with that, oh, I talked to another designer and they said they could do it for 75K. Let them know what that 75K is going to get them, and what are the things that are probably going to come up. And you can tell them that I'd be very surprised if that project ends at 75K. One thing about working with me is you are going to get honesty, and I'm going to make sure I'm setting expectations well. I am confident that 100 or closer to 125 is what is going to bring you what you are looking for without me having to come back and ask for more money. So those little things are big, and they build that trust bank. They build it because they can take away from that conversation that this designer is not just going to tell them what they want to hear. And that's a really, really important piece to working together effectively. So we have confidently talking about the sensitive topics, being able to have and set realistic expectations. And let's talk about a couple more that build trust. This is the part where I get in my head. I'm like, do I want to talk about this one next or this one? Having a design process that you can communicate builds trust. To me, this is the easiest thing that I often see avoided from clients, because clients of mine, designers don't want to commit to something and then not follow through. And you know what? I'm the same way. I don't want to commit to anything and not follow through. So what do I do differently than what you may do? I commit to things and I follow through. I notice that designers avoid committing because they don't want to not follow through, because they don't trust they don't trust themselves that they have a good enough process to follow through on all the things that they say they're going to do. That is a big differentiator, I would say, between me and the clients who come my way before they start working with me. And I get that and I feel that. I wouldn't want to commit to anything either if I don't have a process that allows me to follow through. But that just tells us that we have to figure out what our process is so that we can follow through on it. So all of that to say, having a design process that you are able to communicate to your clients in client onboarding at the right time, at the right place of this onboarding process is another way to build trust, because it allows them to know you are on top of things. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, let me walk you through my design process. This is just a high-level overview where if we work together, this is what the next steps are going to look like. We're going to have a project kickoff conversation. In that, we're going to be doing X, Y, Z. After that, we'll have a conceptual design conversation / meeting. After that, we'll have design finalization. When we nail that, that is when all of the procurement happens. You don't need to write, this is like what I would literally say to them. You don't need to write any of that down. I'll walk you through all of that when the time comes. But what I want you to know is that there are really 3 meetings that take place between when we get started and when kind of installation day comes. You'll see me in between, you'll hear from me in between, but those are our 3 main meetings. When you're able to communicate that you have a process, it builds trust. If you do not currently, if you have not made a decision yet as to how many meetings you have, what your meetings are called, it really makes it complicated for clients to be able to follow what your process is going to be, to make sure that they know that you're going to be on top of things and taking care of them in the meantime, if you were to work together. So having a design process that you were able to communicate builds trust. A couple more that I have here. A process executed well builds trust. That is your onboarding process. When they are able to see that you have steps of your client onboarding, it builds trust. When you are following up after basically every meeting in your onboarding process, and in that conversation, in that follow-up email, you are summarizing the conversation, you are explaining next steps, and you are telling them when they are going to hear from you next, it builds trust. So what does that look like for you to be able to have a process to your onboarding process? A process for you, a process to take your clients through, a process for following up and communicating next steps. Last but not least, communicating effectively throughout your client onboarding process and communicating digestibly. I'm going to pause because I really need to take a sip of water. We're wrapping up. We're going to wrap up hopefully in about 5 minutes. Okay. So communicating effectively and communicating digestibly. A big mistake that I see designers make is, and this happens in all industries, for sure, without a doubt, is giving way too much information up front. It's being on a discovery call and then walking them through what your design process looks like at that time. It's being on a discovery call and starting to talk about colors and patterns and all of that. It's like, what do you need to know? What do you need to know on a discovery call? What do they need to know on a discovery call? And what does the conversation need to be at that specific point to build the know, like, and trust factor? And when you take each step of client onboarding and you nail each one of those things, like, okay, what do they need to know here? What do they need to know here? What do they need to know here? What's not relevant? What can be communicated via email so that it's less overwhelming to share on the phone right now? So it's less overwhelming to share in this in-person consult. When you're able to do that well, you build the know, like, and trust factor, all of them. So a major mistake I see people make, designers make, is sharing way too much in the discovery call and then rushing and, getting to their home, doing the consultation, and then like sending them a proposal. It's like, whoa. There are other steps that are skipped. There are steps that are missed. And half the things you talked about in the discovery call do not need to be talked about in the discovery call. Half the things you talk about don't need to be there, and they could be peppered throughout the process or even shared at the end of the onboarding process after they sign on with you in a welcome email. So those are the elements to really building that trust factor, which allow you to have a seamless client experience. Okay. Now, here's something that comes up a lot when I walk through a really good client onboarding process is two things. One, what if I want to rush the process and land this client? And then two, what if a client wants to rush the process and work with me right away? So here is an example that I want to share with you. I don't watch a ton of reality TV, but I do watch, my two reality TV shows are Love is Blind and The Bachelor. And if you watch The Bachelor, you may have seen a week ago that the Golden Bachelor couple are divorcing. I don't want anyone to get divorced. Divorce is never, it's never a positive thing. Sure, it's a positive thing in terms of like rebirth and someone growing into their new life. I love that. But it's not a positive thing, of course, ever in terms of people, you know, dissolving a marriage, is what I think Gary had shared. So this couple got married in January and they met. I don't know when it was filmed, but let's say last year it was filmed. Um, it ended, let's say last, ended meaning the filming ended last summer, so they had chosen each other at that point. After the final rose, when they announced it to everybody that they're in love and getting married, was maybe in October. I don't know, don't fact check me on this. All I know is when they said in that moment, we're getting married, I was like, why rush this process? Why are you rushing to get married in January? It just felt very wrong to me and icky to me. And I don't know, other people were like, yay, and cheering them on. Listen, they are now splitting. And I'm not terribly surprised because they never really dated. They rushed to the altar. And so I want to offer that as an example to you of what it looks like when you just want to land a client. Imagine going out on a date with somebody who brings up getting married on the first or second date. And same thing, imagine if you were that person that's like, hey, you want to get married on the first or second date? It's like, hey, we could have a good connection, we could have good vibes, but does that mean we should be getting married? Now, there are a lot of happy couples out there. We all know at least one, and it usually is like our parents or grandparents who got married or got engaged 2 weeks after meeting and got married a month later and have lived happily ever after. But it's the exception, not the norm. So I offer that to you as this example, metaphor for when you have a client that comes your way that's really exciting and you want to land them right away or they want to work with you right away. I just want to remind you that it is the exception, not the norm, for that to go really well. So if you have a client who is really exciting to you, your goal should not be to marry them. Your goal should be to get them to fall in love with you. And how does that happen? Through a really great onboarding process and building the know, like, and trust factor, which also is very important in relationships. If you have a client who comes your way who doesn't want to wait and just wants to work with you immediately, trust your gut and ask yourself if that feels right. Now, don't do that without asking them the crucial questions of what their budget is, what their timeline is, what their expectations are. We want to make sure that we, no matter what, have those things clear before we accept a proposal or put a proposal out there. We want to make sure we have those things clear. So if someone comes your way who wants to rush this process, and here's actually, a lot of times I get the question of like, how long is this onboarding process? Well, it's kind of as long as when a client, you and a client have availability and scheduling and all of that. But I do think that there should be about 5 touch points throughout the client onboarding process before a proposal is really sent. That doesn't mean there needs to be 5 meetings, but just like intake form, discovery call, consultation, proposal, and some make emails in between. So something around there. Even as I did that, I'm like, maybe 5 is a lot, but I do think that there should be at least 3, possibly 4 conversations that happen or just interactions that take place that allow you to date somebody before you choose to propose to them. Are we liking this example? I hope so. So that can happen over the course of a couple of weeks. I'm not saying that you need to take a full month to be able to get them to a place from prospect to client. But what I am saying is that you should not be sending them a proposal the day after you talk to them. I get that you want money. I get that you want projects, but you are going to attract, let's keep with the dating scenario, the desperate people who kind of have issues, and you realize that after the fact if you rush the process. And we don't want that to happen. We want to take our time. We're not laid back about this, but we do want to take our time. We want to build the know factor, the like factor, the trust factor. And we really want to get to a place of building trust in you from your clients so that you have a great experience and you want to feel that you can trust them too. And that happens from having a really good client onboarding process. Now, if you haven't yet learned about my client onboarding process VIP days, I do take one-on-one VIP days, hence the VIP part, and I help designers, I teach them and give them a client onboarding process from beginning to end. We walk through each step of the process. I include email templates, I include scripts for the discovery call, scripts for setting yourself up well during a consultation, scripts for a proposal. We talk about the contract. I offer a template contract. We talk about, I give you a whole welcome email to send them. All of that. I help you make decisions such as how many steps do you have in your design process? What do we want to make sure we're communicating? What are your client minimums? All of that is a part of my client onboarding process VIP days. So if you haven't checked it out, and what I share with you today is something that's raising your antennas, if this is something you may want to have in your process, head to the link in my bio and you can learn more about my VIP days and apply for one if it feels right for you. I am confident. I'm obsessed with my VIP days because I know that when I give this to my clients and when they nail this and master an onboarding process, they are the investment that they put into the VIP day, they get 10 times, 100 times back over the rest of their career. I know that, and I'm very, very confident that. So if this is something that you've thought about or you're thinking about, head to the link in my bio to learn more. I'm currently booking about 1 month out. Today is April 16th. My next availability, I take one a week really. My next availability is May 15th, that Wednesday. So I'm like so parched right now. Maybe it's the altitude. I don't know. So head to link in my bio to learn more about it. Don't hesitate to send me a DM if you have any questions. Thank you for being here. If this was helpful, please like the video. Please share it with a friend if you find this helpful. And if you have any questions, like I said, feel free to drop them in the comments or send me a DM. I'd be happy to talk more about any of this. I'm obsessed with client onboarding and client onboarding going really, really well. Thanks for hanging with me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Heather, I'm sorry you're jumping in at the tail end of this. I'm like, check out the replay. I am just wrapping up. Check out the replay. And I will see you all next week on Tuesday. Thanks for being here, and we will chat again soon. Take care, friends. Bye.